much, Georgie. I come to you today, the audience from London, Ontario, in Canada. Really appreciate this opportunity. This is a first for me at the Biotech Atelier, and quite an amazing array of speakers and some incredible thought leadership that you're promoting here. So thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. Let me just bring up my screen here. And we'll put this in display mode. So, I am coming from London, Ontario, and I just want to acknowledge our traditional lands, the First Nations. We're in a day of reconciliation here in Canada, and some of you may have heard of some of the, the trauma that our First Nations have gone through. And am I still on? I see my screen is froze here, so.
We hear you well. Your presentation is on screen right now.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm coming to you from First Nations, Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Shawniton First Nations, and just recognizing those lands that we are upon today here in London, Ontario. As I said, really appreciative of this opportunity. Take a selfie and know you're healthy. So I am Dr. Keith Thompson. I am the Chief Medical Officer here at Neurologics, and I'll tell you a little bit about the company. My interest and passion, I'm a family physician times 30 years. I see patients by day and by night have a new fervor for what's happening in technology and virtual care. So involved in several endeavors from medical innovation here at the University of Western Ontario, adjunct faculty in a couple of departments. I jokingly say that makes me a pretend professor. I'm not a full-time academic, but involved in some research, involved in some working groups in IEEE and WONCA, which is World Congress for Family Physicians. Here's a timeline and a little bit about the company and who we are. Founded in 2015 by Dr. Kang Lee, who was a developmental psychologist, who recognized some of the physiology that was going on in the face of children in essential milestones of development, and recognized there were some things happening in blood flow patterns. And in 2015, he partnered with Marzio Pezzoli, who was an electrical engineer, and the two of them came together and developed this technology in being able to scan the face, capture blood flow and pixelated images, and all the magic and using machine learning and AI that entailed. And you can see since 2015, we've really had some remarkable progress. We were the world's first, by the way, blood pressure measurement as a contactless device. Currently, we have over 13 patents, 6 of them pending, and a number of customers and markets. We have a sort of a global presence. Another milestone for us of significance is we are in a pre-submit for the FDA approval of our device as a Class 2 medical device. What is our device and what do we do? So it's based upon transdermal optical image, and that's a novel form of remote photoplasmography. So we're all familiar with that device we may put on the end of our finger to capture oximetry. Our light emitting source through the finger captures the blood flow in the capillaries and the arteries actually of the finger. Our technology is similar. Transdermal optical imaging is a trademark technology that was developed at Neurologics, and we use reflected light. So light comes into our face based on the blood flow through those arteries beneath the skin. We're able to capture the pulse wave. Once we do that, we're off and running, because if we can see the pulse wave clearly and clean up that signal, we can do all sorts of analysis on that pulse wave. And there's a number of different features that we capture. But this is really where the magic of machine learning comes in. When we show people our demonstration, they go, wow, how do you do that? How is that possible? So there are thousands, literally thousands of features. And the machine learning is really just using deep neural nets, convolutional neural networks, and multi-layer perceptrons. And I won't go into the weeds on that, but other than saying when we capture that signal, start to do these analyses, the machine learning can start to recognize data patterns that would not normally be possible. We capture those pixelated images of blood flow, and from that develop our whole host of features, and I'm going to run for you just as we're chatting. You can see in the background, this can run off of any smart device with a camera and an internet connection. So the light flow is captured, capturing the blood flow, and those waves and signals are sent up to the cloud to do the analysis, and then we get a whole host of measurements and analysis of the patient and the various parameters. So in literally 30 seconds, if you can believe this, here is really all that we can capture. So remember that the blood flow in the nose is different and it behaves physiologically, it may look different based on innervation than the areas of the cheek or the forehead. We call those regions of interest. And so again, because this novel form of remote photoplasmography is looking at all those regions of interest and those different data patterns in blood flow that are going on. And that's what allows us to do not just vital signs, but many other metabolic risks, for example, blood biomarkers. We can capture heart rate and heart rate variability, so we can quickly do an analysis on people's mental stress based on what that heart rate variability looks like. And so really, if you think of what it would take me as a physician in terms of ordering lab work and seeing the patient, having the patient go to the lab, this is what we can, in 30 seconds, do a very widespread full spectrum analysis and screening for our patients. We're not trying to replace medical devices. We're not there yet. Certainly our blood pressure, once we get FDA approval, that will be I know, our crown jewel, and that will be a medical device. And we've already proven accuracy based on ISO 81060 guidelines that our technology is accurate in measuring blood pressure. But the other metabolic risks and things that we do are what are now called classifiers. And one example of that is we have just released hemoglobin A1C. And so again, in doing that facial scan, capturing the blood flow, doing the machine learning analysis, we trained our models to look and recognize, okay, is this person above 5.7% with their A1C? So as you know, A1C is a marker for pre-diabetes, whereas checking your progression towards diabetes. So we do the scan and we ask and we train the models to recognize, is this person above 5.7? Yes or no. And fasting blood sugar, is it above 5.5? Yes or no. And these models, as I said, have been trained, and we have a database of over 40,000 subjects. So we're able to capture the ground truth, the blood pressure, some of the medical parameters. This is what allows us to do this, and the database is quite extensive. But this is exciting because, again, now this puts the power of screening into the patient, only limited by their access to a device who has a camera. We're peer reviewed. We're constantly publishing on our foundational science. And so you can go to our website and see the various studies that we're working on. Over 100 researcher years to date that have gone into this technology. There's 100 employees currently. We're based in Toronto, Ontario, and we do have a subsidiary also based in China, but really making some advanced progress in various markets, which I'll talk about. So what's the significance of what it is, and what drives us as a company to be passionate about what we do? Here's the problem. 50% of the world's population is without access to proper health care. And certainly an area that would be keenly evident is in Africa, for example, 1.3 billion people, and over half of them not having access to health care. And it's problematic, certainly. I jokingly say this would be a waiting room in one of the hospitals in Toronto, Ontario right now. We're in a crisis because of a shortage of healthcare staff and family physicians. I'm a dying breed. There's not enough of us to supply the needs. What's interesting from our standpoint is we believe that the cell phone is going to be that device that's ubiquitous, that ultimately more and more interactions will be done over people's personal smart devices. 70% of the poorest countries, if you take the 20% of the world's poorest countries, 70% of them have access to cellular technology, and almost 60% of the globe has internet access. WHO, World Health Organization, has created this action plan looking at and targeting non-communicable diseases. So they said, look, there's areas where we are hemorrhaging and where we're most at risk, and those would be hypertension affecting 1 billion people, diabetes 460 million, mental health 1 in 8 people in the world suffers from a mental health condition at any given time, and cardiovascular risk, which is a major killer. And of those chronic diseases, here are some of the global statistics and the impact, and remarkable that hypertension actually is deadlier than COVID. Diabetes, for example, affecting almost 7% of the population, and pre-diabetes affecting 6 to 7% of the population, and they don't know they have it. And to get access to a doctor or go to a doctor to get the test just for simple screening, right, is really challenging for a lot of people. So if you think of the access that this type of technology will allow, is really going to be quite remarkable and open up some doors on population health, which we can talk about. Cardiovascular disease, I mean, in 2015 was the latest stat I was looking at. 17 million people globally died under the age of 70. I mean, it's catastrophic. And look at the cost of mental health, right? Over $1 trillion globally per year in lost productivity. I know some of the folks here speaking today, this is an area of keen interest for them. So we provide that technology also for an abbreviated form of depression, anxiety, and stress. We figured out a machine learning model to take those 42 questions and reduce it down to 5 to improve the efficiency of the workflow and the speed of being able to screen for that. And by the way, the U.S. task force recently put out a draft proposal suggesting every person under the age of 65 should be screened for anxiety. So we have a number of different use cases, and each one of them a bit unique, but these are some of the areas that we are currently involved in. And I would say InsurTech would certainly be an area we're kind of making rapid progress, and some of our recent partners being, NTT Data and HSBC Insurance in Hong Kong. Telecom communications, NTT Data is a large partner, one of the larger telecom communications in Japan, has chosen our technology, went over various technologies available, and said, this is the one we want to use for our partners. We are really excited. I can't give names on this yet, but again, imagine globally, right? In our region in London, Ontario, we have 500,000 people. 100,000 of them don't have access to primary care. And as a primary care provider, even for my own patients, how can I screen those that are at risk? It's not just the one diabetic or the one hypertensive in front of me in my office. It's the ones that I don't know or can't see. And hypertension, for example, half the population doesn't know that they have it. So if you take 1 billion people, 46 of those billion people are unaware. And the other 20% are not, it's only 20% of those folks that are being treated properly or to target. So we're excited to be able, and hopefully soon we'll be able to put names to these, but a South Asian government and a global non-for-profit, a region of over 10 million people, our technology is going to be disseminated to those folks to help them screen for cardiovascular disease using our application called Anura. And Anura is just the mobile application of what's going on in the cloud, which is a deep FX machine learning AI technology. So Anura is the local application that displays the results and the things that I'd shown you earlier. Imagine being able to aggregate all of this data. So you've got thousands, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people scanning. So if you're a public health foundation, you want to know what's going on in your region, or you're maybe an EAP and you're wanting to know how well you're doing with your EAP program, you can use our technology to grab real data, and we can see not only the individual results that the person can look at themselves, and they can keep that anonymous, but the provider, the payer, can see an aggregated, anonymized population stats really in what's going on. Talking about a business case for hypertension, this is interesting. A study done by and published in the American Journal Medical Association, Hello Heart. What they did was they took a Omron blood pressure device, sent it out to over 27,000 patients who were diagnosed with hypertension, followed them for 3 years, and they also gave them an app. And that app we would call a digital therapeutic, which said, hey, did you take your blood pressure meds? Have you gone for a walk today? And some coaching and some information. And they followed them for 3 years. And look at the results just with that intervention and actively engaging with hypertensive patients. Reductions in LDL and weight, reduced hemoglobin A1C. But look at the cost savings, $1,800 per participant per year, and 3 patient days avoided for hospitalization per year per participant. And I don't know what the region of the world you're in, but certainly here in Canada, 1 day in the hospital is probably equivalent to $1,200, which is a huge savings. So, there's some immediate returns on engaging actively with patients and helping them manage their condition. Bupa Insurance, again, is one of our partners, and they're an insurance provider in Sanitas Hospital, based in Spain and Latin America. And again, this technology they chose to help their customers and patients be able to understand their own health risk. And they're doing some amazing stuff with their digital hospital and even using this type of technology as the entrance sort of screening and initial assessment of people and determine who's at risk and help coach them through various chronic disease states. And this is just showing the app, white labeled as our technology in the background, but this is what a customer might experience when they go through, they do their scan and capture all of their risk profiling and parameters. I mentioned NTT data, which we're excited about, large telecom in Japan. Again, we were the technology of choice to be able to disseminate to various customers. We're available across mobile app based web-based. We have a kiosk style, which is through a Asian supplier that we could use, a separate device. But so we're web-based, or we can be that mobile local application. But everything operates out of the cloud, and our technology is very very secure. We meet all of the regulatory requirements. I'm going to run just briefly, and if the sound doesn't come through, that's okay. Just let me know if you can. Can we hear the sound on that?
Let's try.
If you can't hear the sound, it's okay. What I'm going to do is just let this play. But this is what we're most excited about. This is still for investigational purposes only. But as a family physician, this just blows me away. When practiced for 30 years, we can embed our technology into a live two-way video feed. So if I was encountering my patient during a telemedicine visit, I can capture those parameters: heart rate, blood pressure, heart rate variability, breathing rate, and mental stress index. And the mental stress index is a proprietary score that we've developed based on heart rate variability, because we're capturing that beat to beat, between heartbeats, beat to beat variability, and we can do some calculations and analysis on that. So this is just really demonstrating the power of this technology for a telemedicine feed. So we're excited to see this progress, and there you're seeing it come up now. And as I'm talking, this is one of our sales folks at Neurologics, and I'm getting a live feed for her vitals, and that scan ran in this instance for about 2 minutes. So imagine during a psychological interview, right? If you're a psychologist and wanting to determine some feedback and how stressed the person is, or I'm a practitioner and I just want to know, how's your blood pressure doing today? And I can do a quick scan. So the modules that we plug in can be varied. So we wouldn't do a full 2-minute scan or live feed necessarily for metabolics. We wouldn't need that, but certainly for vital signs, if we wanted to do a single shorter scan during an encounter to capture some of those metabolics, though, that's certainly possible. We're fully compliant PIPEDA, GDPR in Europe, SOC 2 security, and we can be seamlessly integrated. We have SDK abilities, so software developer kits that would allow you to white label, and that's our technology, fast and furious. And so thank you so much, Georgie, to present today. Very very excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the detailed depiction of everything you've been doing. Would you actually allow me a couple of quick questions that we've received?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize. This is early morning here in London, so getting the sun streaks across the face. So I'll try and move myself around here a bit. Thank you.
It looks actually it looks cool. I would assume this is the elephant in the room, probably actually coming from a physician, namely Dr. Thompson. Thank you for engaging us with what you've achieved, and especially the last part, yeah, about the live depiction of the factors of the patient. Where do we draw the borderline between technologically driven assessment and clinical path, and am I going to become myself obsolete?
Yeah, excellent question. And you know what I didn't divulge, and I was just at a conference yesterday about this, and this is my passion, right? Is the compassionate use of technology. So we're not looking to replace physicians. We're not looking to replace, people within the healthcare system. One of the quotes that I did yesterday that lit up Twitter, and Sylvia McSpaden was the one that prompted me on this, and this is her devise, which is there is a difference between providing care and the patient feeling cared for. We always need that compassion. Someone needs to interpret. The technology is a tool that allows me as a physician that's known my patients for now 27, 30 years, they have a trust in me. And will they have a greater trust using these advanced technology, right? And another quote I've heard is that AI will not replace physicians, and AI technology, though, will not replace physicians, but those who don't use that technology may become obsolete. So it's a powerful tool, but agreed it has to be balanced with that humanitarian and holistic. That's the artisan portion of what we do as family docs. And the technology can't replace that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, switching on a more personal note of things, artisan. You mentioned. How do you keep your inner artisan alive? Is there a strategy around that?
Yeah, so my colleagues are dying on the vine here in Canada. We have a healthcare crisis, and COVID just really upped the ante. Wait times are horrible. Access to care is horrible. So my late bloom, I jokingly say I'm almost 60 years old, and I haven't long to live. So I have to make the impact that I can during my final years. But it gave me a fervor. I look at this with excitement, and I see how this can enhance what I do as a primary care physician. But, when at the end of the day, when the patient shares with me their, their appreciation. I was just the other day, right, a few weeks back, one of my patient was going through a mental health crisis and had to be taken to emerge. It was a very ugly situation. The police had to come and help me get this fellow to hospital. And while I'm sitting there, he says, Dr. T, could you just stay with me, please? Right? I mean, there's no fee code for this. There's no metric to measure that compassion and humanity. And I stayed with him probably about 3 hours, right, until he was transferred over to the mental health team. Um, that's what thrives and keeps me alive, to be honest. Now, always boundaries and barriers, and we have to be careful that we don't, look solely to our careers to reinforce and give us the pleasure. We need other things in life. And for me, the other things have been the technology, and really now how to meld the compassion with the technology. How do we reconcile that humanistic or holistic aspect of care within a technological world? And so, yeah, thank you.
And one more coming from the audience. Imagine you had a magic wand, right? So if you would be a magician, what would you do?
Oh man, right now I see the greatest need being improving healthcare equity. I mean, when I talked about half the world being without healthcare, that's, in my opinion, criminal. And the UN declared that, internet access was an essential service that every person in the globe should have access. My work with IEEE and with Wonka, that's been really what fuels many of us in those working groups. So if I had a magic wand, I would say if we could solve the connectivity issue globally, that improves and allows for greater equity, that's where I'd want it to go.
Lovely. And having a thought, I guess this is coming from a producer, having a thought about Neurologics and what you guys have been doing. Is there right now, based on the current state of technology you have, is there a sweet spot for standalone manufacturers? When is actually a good point along the value creation timeline or production timeline, let's say, to actually start considering integration of your solution?
Yeah, so you're taking me into the weeds kind of on the business model. So what I didn't say, we're a SaaS-based offering. We're price per measurement. Now those can be bundled services based on volume. Will we ever see our technology embedded into devices? I don't know that we want to go there. And there's been, talk within the company that then you become a hardware manufacturer provider. And it's really messy. So we like the idea of saying, yeah, look, here's a service on the cloud, plug and play, right? Now, where that might be different is what's evolving within the motor vehicle. And so using our technology to monitor strictly heart rate and, as a driver suddenly incapacitated, that's a solution that might be embedded within vehicles somehow. And that might be a game, but it would be a very limited, like just to heart rate. It's not going to do blood pressure and all the other stuff, clearly, right? So maybe that's where we might end up within that industry. Other examples, whether it's a home-based device or a mirror that goes on the wall, I think those will always be an internet connection. To be honest, I don't envision them ever being in an embedded solution.
Got it. Thank you so much. We will ensure to forward any further questions that we didn't address right now. It was a pleasure having you here on stage. Thank you for finding the time. And yeah, if you have any last words, I see your.
Georgie, I just wanted to thank you again. As I said, this is the first opportunity for me. I'm excited about what you guys are doing, and thank you for giving me a humane hour to present. I know it's 6 hours time difference, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you.